The Israel Nature and Parks Authority announced a temporary ban Sunday on the use of audio equipment in hunting migrating quails. The equipment emits S that attract the quails, making it easier to trap them. During the period of the ban, which will be in effect until 2019, the Parks Authority will conduct research to assess the status of the birds, and will then decide whether to ban hunting them altogether. The population of migrating quails has significantly declined worldwide, and in Israel the birds are close to extinction, among other reasons, due to hunting. Without the equipment, there is no quail hunting, Israel Nature and Parks Authority Director General Shaul Goldstein told Haaretz. The hunters asked us to let them use the equipment at least for short periods, but we didn't do so because it will disrupt the scientific work to better understand the bird's situation, he said. The Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel petitioned the High Court of Justice in August to order a ban on quail hunting, but withdrew its petition following the announcement by the Parks Authority. Israel's wildlife protection law permits quail hunting, but according to the SPNI, these birds were added to the list of species permitted to hunt 40 years ago, and since then their numbers have dwindled. The SPNI said chukar partridges and hystrix, a species of porcupine, were also once on the list, but they were removed when it became apparent that they were endangered. We've got more newsletters we think you'll find interesting. Click here. Please try again later. In a letter Sunday to the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, the NGO Let the Animals Live and the Hunters Association, Goldstein wrote, the status of the migrating quail in Israel has recently been determined by a group of Israeli experts to be critically endangered. The experts believe that no more than 50 nesting individuals are left, Goldstein wrote, adding that this assessment was confirmed by Parks Authority scientists. The research project to be conducted for the Parks Authority by ornithologists and other scientists will mainly follow the migrating population. The findings will be presented to nature protection groups and hunters so they can express their opinion before policy recommendations are made. The results of the study will determine whether the audio equipment can be used again, whether the ban should be extended, or whether to ask the Environmental Protection Minister to remove quails from the list of species permitted to hunt. Page 2. The Gunsberg Collection, one of the most important collections of Jewish books and manuscripts in the world, which is kept in the Russian State Library in Moscow, will be digitized and made accessible to the general public by the National Library of Israel in Jerusalem. On Tuesday, a historic agreement will be signed between the National Library and its counterpart in Moscow. The agreement is a significant milestone in the contacts between the two institutions, which began exactly 100 years ago, when the National Library was still the Beit HaSefarim Hillel. The signing ceremony, which will take place on Tuesday in the National Library, will be attended by dignitaries from both sides, but the significant achievement and the celebrations surrounding it also conceal an Israeli defeat, at least a temporary one, namely, the failure to gain possession of the collection. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently admitted that fact indirectly, when he said, without detracting from the demand to regain possession of the collection, we asked in the first stage to cooperate on the digitization of the collection in order to afford scholars high-quality access to these important materials. The director of the Russian State Library, Vladimir Nezlilov, is quoted in a National Library press release as saying, modern information technology has opened new and unlimited possibilities for accessing the cultural values of countries and their peoples. The Gunsberg Collection is a rich and unique collection of books and manuscripts that contains over 14,000 items, including thousands of rare Hebrew books, as well as manuscripts in Hebrew and many other languages. It includes medieval works in science, philosophy and Jewish studies, midrashim, copies of the writings of Maimonides and the Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ibn Adoret, biblical commentaries, books of Hebrew grammar and halakha, religious law, medieval poetry, Kabbalistic and medical texts. Maggid Devour folklore, Ancona, Italy 1550. Russian State Library prayer book according to the Roman Rite, Italy 15th century. Russian State Library. The collection was put together by 3 generations of an aristocratic Russian Jewish family beginning in the mid-19th century. In the early 20th century it was considered one of the most important Judaica collections in the world. There's no question that even today the collection is a national cultural treasure for the Jewish people, says Dr. Avid Stallman of the National Library. In 1917 a contract was signed for the purchase of the collection, between the Beit HaSefarim Hillel and the Russian authorities. 500,000 gold rubles were transferred to the Russians, about $15 million according to today's gold value, through donations by Russian Zionists. The books had already been placed in cartons in preparation for their dispatch to Palestine, but delivery was delayed due to World War I. With the outbreak of the Bolshevik Revolution, the books were seized, nationalized and transferred to the Lenin State Library in Moscow. Albert Einstein, Chaim Weizmann and later Benjamin Netanyahu tried in vain to persuade the Russians to return the collection. A Passover Haggadah from the Gunsberg Collection, 1725. Russian State Library. In recent years, Israel has broached the subject during official meetings with senior officials in Russia, with the involvement of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, Netanyahu, and then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Israel sent Russia documents showing proof of ownership of the collection, in the hope that the warming of relations between the countries would also bring an end to this affair. Netanyahu even spoke about it several times with President Vladimir Putin, but a few years ago he realized that for now there is no chance of receiving the collection, and therefore he advised the National Library to advance a digitization project without deciding, at this point, on ownership of the collection. That paved the way to the agreement being signed this week. The digitization project was funded by the Perry Foundation, headed by Ziavuddin Magomedov, a Russian Muslim billionaire businessman from Dagestan, who is active in cultural preservation. In the past he contributed to a project to preserve the mosque in Kala Koresh in Dagestan. The collection will be accessible on the website KTIV, on which the National Library has posted tens of thousands of rare manuscripts. Passover Haggadah, Frankfurt am Main, Germany 1725. Russian State Library.